So welcome to the February 23rd Finance Committee meeting. We have some documents to share tonight. Charlene's going to lead us through those documents, and she can talk a little more about what's going into them. But we have had some conversations, most certainly with the special education department, as well as the instructional and buildings, grounds, and transportation as a part of building the numbers you're going to see tonight. There's still some pieces that aren't totally complete, as would be expected, and Charlene will probably talk more about that as we move through it as well. But we'll start with the forecast, Charlene, and go from there, and then we can hit the budget afterwards. And I can go into the folder, and I didn't know that's probably plenty for tonight. I didn't know if at some point you wanted to talk at all about the maintenance of tax effort, that spreadsheet you sent me the other day, or if you just wanted me to share that with the board.
Yep, we just showed them.
All right, so we'll start with I'll pop up the forecast, and we'll go from there. And I'll try to make it a little bit bigger once it's up there for everyone to see.
And there's plenty of documentation in the folder for you tonight, and I don't expect you to read all of it, but it's there, and it just gives you a good, very small sample of all the information that is out there and available, and about the executive budget, about tax cap calculations, about NISBA's governmental committee, working at the federal and state level. A very good article came out today about, I think it was the nine member group that's really talking about, the digital divide now, and that COVID and students learning from home has really brought that to the forefront, and that really something needs to be addressed on the federal and state level. So there's a lot of information out there, and feel free to ask me if you'd like anything additional, because I have lots more. So forecast one. So I just got this done today. I wasn't going to really bring it out today, but Dan was saying, oh, wow, he was kind of surprised by the numbers. And so I said, well, I'll throw this together and we'll kind of take a look at the big picture. And, it's not complete, absolutely not complete. Like Dan said, we met with special ed, we met with the principal, we met with buildings and grounds and transportation, we met with special ed. Many our special ed placements are not complete. We haven't, they haven't finished annual reviews, and so we want to make sure that we cover anybody that might be coming back, or anybody that's placement might be changed, and provide for any placements that might happen in the next few months or over the summer. And then we still need to look at the net cost of health insurance. I'm going to work with Michelle on that, because as you know, our bargaining units all changed to a new insurance policy last year, and we have a let's see, I want to think what the word is. It's $2,000 for family and for two-person, and $1,000 for single, but that's the max that we would be liable for. So we want to get a feel on how much to project for that, and then we have to calculate, of course, their contributions, and of course it's a good percent of a less expensive policy. So we need to project that out. Also, we just got today the cap region rates. So we did not have those, and we still do not have all of the wish rebonus rates. So we still have information to come in. We're still working on it, but this is a first draft. We said we would look at expenditures today. And so the revenues are the same. Top part of the revenues of your forecast are the same. It's the tax cap calculation at the cap. I know we discussed that we intend to go over the cap if we need to provide the students with the best education that we possibly can. So I realize that, but this was, again, just the first draft. Other income I left flat. I need to look at that, because I need to evaluate contracts that we have where we have income coming in for rental property, for shared services, and then also for special ed students coming to our school. We need to verify that they're going to be returning next year. So we're doing a little bit different classroom. We're going to be bringing a few students back, so need to look at that a little more with special ed. Your state aid projections, that is what it is. I have another handout in there that shows you the breakdown. So we can take a look at that, but it definitely is down. So that is not an error. We are going to get less state aid. So, and we need to look at a large portion of that aid. We need to look at that because large portion of that is federal aid. And that federal aid is plugged in for this year, but it can be used over, I believe, 2 years. And we might want to think about that because when that federal aid goes away the following year, then everybody's talking about a fiscal cliff. So all the business managers, all the organizations, everybody's talking about is the year after that we have to worry about when there's no federal aid. So we might want to think about using that federal aid over 2 years. Our payment in lieu of taxes, or your pilot, of course, comes off this year. And so that's the majority of your property tax increase. It really is that pilot coming off and then being taxed their full levy or their full property value going into the tax cap calculation, going into the levy calculation. And so you can see there's only about a difference of about $80,000. Last year we used our reserves. We used our workers' comp reserve and our unemployment insurance reserves. They are now zero. They're empty. So I thought, well, so we can compare apples to oranges. I'll say, we'll throw in fund balance for $84,000. So kind of put us where we were last year with pilot. We got the levy. The state aid is what it is. You can't change it. And then replace the reserve money that we put in last year with some fund balance money. And I definitely think we have that, so that's not a problem. So our revenues are down, but let's look at expenditures. So we did a lot of cool things last year. We did have to cut a lot of BOCES services, and we'll be looking at those again. There may be some that Dan may want to add back in, so we need to really look at that service request when we get it, and we haven't got it yet. We shouldn't. They said it's going to be another couple of weeks before we get that BOCES services commitment form and make some decisions. Debt service is down, so that's one of the great things we did last year. We refinanced our debt and paid off some debt. So our debt is down. Both those numbers, I looked back today and I was like, wow, so I looked back today, reconfirmed, looked at BPD's analysis of our debt, looked at last year's number. Yep, that's what they said. Looked at this year's number. Yep. So yeah, so we've got a good savings there. And so that's really going to help us this year. Our fuel, our electricity and gas. I worked with NY got a good feel for how that works with them, how they bill us over six payments every 2 months, how they use the budgeting process, and then they balance it, that last payment, and then either they don't keep any money, so either they owe you or you owe them. So I got a really good feel for how that works. The contracts, transportation contracts, that we pretty much just left it. I looked at what we're paying, what our contracts are. I think 50,000 is right. I'll talk to Dan if I'm off there, but I think that's right. That's not adding back in transportation. So one of the things Dan and I talked about is if we're going to bring back some positions and we're going to prepare for all our students to return in September. And we're going to offer, sports if COVID lets us, and we're going to offer all the extracurricular and everything. Maybe the one thing that we might not be able to do is transportation, but we can talk about that. Health insurance, again, that's my best estimate, my best guesstimate. I'm going to work with Michelle, hopefully in the next 2 weeks and iron that out, and hopefully I'm on target, but I think I'm pretty close. So retirement for ERS and TRS, they both went up. So ERS was 14.6, it's now 16.2, and TRS is 9.53, it's now 9.8. It's moving in the wrong direction, folks. So we might want to consider a TRS and an ERS reserve. You can do both now. You don't have either. You're going to have some retirement. So no reserve, that rate keeps going up. It's going to hurt your budget. You might want to plan for the future. So salaries. Of course, our salaries are up because we've added some positions. We can talk about that. Again, we met with special ed. They've got some ideas about how they're going to bring some students back, and they're going to need a 12 to 1 classroom. I hope I'm saying this all right. Special ed's not my forte, but I think I got it right. So they needed some aides, they needed some assistance. They've got it figured out. They've really looked it over well. They met with the principal and met with Dan, talked it over, talked to me. So we also want to bring back some, not full time, but some, like half time, 0.67, I think it's 4 periods, in several areas. Some of them Dan presented at the last meeting, and a couple more have come up, and again with meetings with Joanna Scotch and your principal. We've talked about a few areas where we think we're going to need extra support from students. So.
Charlene, can I interrupt for 1 second? Dan, is that the complete wish list we talked about that's added there?
So those are the positions that we talked about. I don't know, Charlene. The one I didn't ask you about if that includes the pre-kindergarten.
It's in the F fund. Yes, it is in the F fund, and I did upload the F fund as well.
Okay. Yep.
So everything that the principal asked for, everything that the guidance counselor asked for, and everything that special ed asked for, and everything that Dan asked for is in here. So this is the wish list, including the last one that was asked for at about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Great.
or it was a little earlier, but everything that's been asked for is in here.
Charlene, including the extracurriculars and athletics.
Yep, you'll see it. Yep. So going down the list, Social Security, of course, is up because of the extra salaries. Workers' comp is just horrendous. We're trying to get them to analyze it and give me an answer. Why did it increase so much? They said they've never seen an increase like this ever before. So we're trying to get some answers on that. Dan, have you heard anything?
I have not, although I do know that we had a few claims. I looked at the sheets that BOCES put out, and it showed what we had for claims in the last year, and we had 2 significant claims that are causing for us to have an abnormally high increase in workers' comp.
Okay, so are you on that board, the workers' comp board?
I'm not, but I do during our CSO meetings. They do show us. They do show us some of that information.
Okay, so it is what it is. Unemployment insurance has also been very high this year. I'm hoping that will calm down next year, but we know it goes over a period of months. And if they extend the benefits, the federal benefits have been, increasing the benefits and have been paying back, I think, like 50%. So I need to meet with Michelle and see, if she thinks that number is a good number for next year, and whether we'll be getting anything back, whether we've been paying whole 100% or 50% of our bills. So I have to talk to her about that. But I think, it's going to be somewhere around that number. Equipment, the only thing I have in there right now, and the only request I reviewed with Craig, and he's had the pump evaluated, the circulator evaluated, and it doesn't need to be replaced. He knows what it needs, and he's getting a quote on it. So the only thing in there is the equipment that is aided by the state. So it's a wash. So that is in there. Materials and supplies is down a little bit, so I'm going to look at that a little bit more with Michelle. See if there's some areas. I don't believe I added back in materials and supplies for the teachers, so we might want to take a look at that. Then, of course, community schools is a revenue and expense, and transfer to other funds I left the same. I still need to look at the cafeteria budget for next year and see if maybe we can reduce that a little bit. And the last is other, and that's your catch-all for your contracted services and anything that's not on the other lines. So if you want to look down below where we're at.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So right now, our revenues are a little bit shy of our expenditures in this forecast. And again, this is not final, but it's not horrendous. So other than the areas that we need to keep tweaking and working on, we'll have another update for you in 2 weeks at the next meeting. But I think we've made some really good progress, gave you an idea of, where we are at the cap. We'll be looking more at our fund balance to see if we can contribute anything to the budget, whether we want to use all of that federal aid in 1 year, and many other things. But for me, I think it's kind of a better place than we were last year. So I'm pretty happy with where we're sitting right now.
Charlene,
Well,
can you talk to the increase in the tax levy, the 12.78, and then the minus 2.02%? Can you speak to those briefly?
So it just calculates it out. So of course that includes, the pilot. So I think without the pilot, I think it's didn't we talk? It's like 2% or something. So I mean, the huge part of that is really the pilot. So they're not going to have that huge increase in their tax rate. So it is what it is. So it's because that pilot funds is shifting up into the levy down out of the pilot line. So, and then the negative 2.2%, that's just, that's because the budget dropped from 11.1 to 10.9. But I mean, we're probably going to get it up to, it's going to be somewhere in that. We're right around 11 million. I said we'd be around 11 million, and that's exactly where we are. I think for Edward, until the state comes through with more money or the taxpayers decide to pay more money, that's pretty much where Fort Edward is around 11 million. It's kind of a spot where it's going to be hard for you to get off of.
For me, I guess, and thank you, Charlene. For me, the piece about it is, and we have said it before, that folks, the challenge will be that folks are going to see that our levy went up by 12.78% because that's one of the numbers that the newspaper prints. But like Charlene said, 10 to 11% of that increase in the levy is because the pilot came off, and now instead of Irving sending us that pilot check, their check has to come in the form of regular property taxes. So that's going to be a talking point, I would guess, around this community for all of you when people are asking, well, what do you mean? The levy went up by almost 13%. They've got plenty of money up there. No, it's the same exact money from last year. Yep. For the most part, right? So we want to be prepared. Everybody needs to be prepared to answer that question. And then with the budget increase, although we're not final, you can see that in this first run, we're showing that our budget will be down by about 2%. Likely it's going to be flat or slightly above or slightly below flat when we're done getting everything in there. But there's no huge increase to the budget going along with a 13% increase in the levy. No. So that's difficult for folks sometimes that don't spend their days and nights and evenings in here. And I totally get that, but I wanted to make sure that we said it tonight. And we'll say it at every meeting as we review those numbers, just to try to get people to hear that and understand that as best we can.
So maybe along that line, let's take a look at that tax effort, because I think this is a very, very, very cool thing that I looked at today and had Questar do for us. And I think it's a very important message that we need to get out there. And maybe it will explain Fort Edward's situation.
Give me 1 second and I will grab that one.
So I have grab the one that I put up just a few minutes ago, because it has the little chart and the graphic on it. So I think that's pretty cool. And the definition of a tax effort. It's in
is that in my email, Charlene, or is it in the
it's in the folder. Yeah, I just loaded it like 2 minutes ago.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's got a nice little graph on it. I couldn't figure out how to do it at first, but I figured it out eventually. I figured out a lot of things today. It's like, oh God.
That's awesome. All right. Budget, security, got a lot of.
It says tax effort on it.
Yeah. Fort Edward tax effort ratio 2017 to 2022.
Yeah, I think so.
And you uploaded it today. So that's the one you uploaded, not the one I uploaded. Yep. All right. So there's two in there, folks. So we've got one that's a little more updated. So I'll do this one, and if it's not the right one, Charlene, I'll grab the other one.
Yes, sir.
Tax ranking 30. That's the one you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
30. We're top ranking, whatever that means.
Well, no, that it's really good thing. So if he pops it up here, I can pop up my own, and then I can start talking about it.
It's coming right now.
Okay. So I have to give kudos to John over at Questar. Whenever I give him a challenge, a data challenge, he's a real data geek, you know. Of course, he pulls all this down. Is that the right one? Where's my little? Where's my little graphic?
So I'm going to grab the other one, Charlie. There was two in there.
Yeah, the other one, because this one doesn't have the graphic. But that's the one I just uploaded, I thought.
Well, there's two in there.
They both have my name on them.
Yeah.
Okay, so a tax effort ratio. This is on the governor's budget, and it's on the bottom of the IMA. So it's the instructional materials aid executive budget. And people kind of don't look at this, but Dr. Rick Timms from the retired superintendent, who's an expert at everything school districts now, he taught me this. So very smart man. So he said anything over 10 tax effort ratio, your school district is probably asking their taxpayers for more money than they can afford. So what this is it's the district effort ratio as a result of, and this particular one this year is, they have to go back to the last full year of taxes. So they compare the 2018 residential tax levy and they divide it by the 2018 adjusted gross income. So they're taking the levy and they're finding out what percentage of the gross income it is. And so ours is 2.5, and we are out of 31, we are the lowest. We are next to the lowest. So we, out of all of WishWe, are the next lowest school district in terms of tax levy as a percentage of adjusted gross income.
I'm just trying to find the winner here. The winner is Saratoga.
Right. So I have a little graph. If we can get the other one up eventually, or you can see it in there or pull it up. Hopefully it came through right. I don't know where my little graph is, but so it really shows that everybody is under 10. So everybody's kind of, you know, under that threshold that Dr. Rick Tim says is really asking more than people can afford. And we are the second lowest. And if you look across the years, we're actually asking for less. We were at 3.074, then we were at 2.962, then we went up a little bit, 3.027, 3.1, and then for 21-22, we're at 2.52. So if you compare us across to everybody in the WishWe, we're not asking for a lot compared to for Edward, and this is based on their tax returns. And in their tax return, they put in their school code. You all do on your New York State return, ask you what your school code is, and you put it in. So this is data that they derive from that. So I just thought that was, I wanted to look at this before Edward, because everybody kept saying, oh, we're paying too much, we're paying too much, we're paying too much. So I was like, okay, let's see how we compare. Let's see how we compare to all the other WishWe schools. And we do very well. So I think this is definitely something we need to get out there to the taxpayers. Based on their adjusted gross income, we don't ask too much. So,
wow. So that's.
I know we don't.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it seems relative in a sense, but okay. What I'm more concerned, and that's good stuff, because it definitely shows that we're not overtaxing our folks for sure. In regards to the other screen we had before, the main screen there with revenue and expenditure,
Yep.
So we're short 225. Is that basically what we're looking at here? 225 as of right now. We're short on budget.
Yeah, this is just a rough draft. This is just our first draft. Yeah.
No, I get it. So I mean, and I think the reason why it's not much higher is the fantastic job on the expenditures. I mean, most things are costing us less money at first glance anyway. The debt thing is huge.
They really
so
Yep.
Yeah, so we're looking at, so when it comes down to it, once we get at least as close to a final draft as possible, we'll have to, we're talking about going backwards again, as opposed to capturing any more money in the tax, correct?
Well, again, I need to look at fund balance. I need to look at that other income as related to shared services and providing services for out-of-district students. And then we need to look at whether we're going to exceed the tax cap. So we have a couple of revenue line items that we still need to look at. And then there, as I mentioned earlier, there are several expenditure lines that I want to look a little more closely at.
Okay. Do you any idea on the swing? The potential, the
Nope.
high end of what we might be looking at? No
Nope.
kind of forecast on that?
Nope. We have many things that we still need to look at, and I think I mentioned them all.
Okay. Well, it's reassuring to see that our wish list is in there, and it's not as initially horrible as we thought it was going to be. So that's promising. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have anything on this part?
So at this point, you would need a supermajority because, and you're saying that we had that wiggle room to go maybe where we're taking it from negative 2.02 to maybe around 0 or a little higher than that. Is that what you're looking at?
At first, yeah, you're talking about down at the bottom, the increase in budget, Todd.
Yes.
Yeah, down there. And you guys are able to see that again. I hope I've been trying to keep up, but it takes a while to grab these documents and put them out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're saying. There's still some work to be done, Todd, but that's what we're saying. Yeah. But likely it's not going to be a negative 2.02%.
No, it's hard to go down and down every year with inflation and everything else.
Especially when we're adding stuff back too. I mean, that's a big factor here. We're trying to
with no reserves.
Yeah.
Very little, 84.
Okay.
So unless you want to keep looking at documents or you want to keep diving into the numbers, I mean, like I said, the property tax calculation is out there again. I put in some of the F fund salaries. You can see, what the grants are covering. I put a spreadsheet out there, how I calculated Social Security and retirement. There's the BOCES budget draft out there. Again, we don't have all the new rates. Just got cap region today, so I need to update that spreadsheet, work with special ed on placement. There's a little communication, working with them as far as, projecting out next year's placement. So working on it, we're getting there. Takes time.
No, I appreciate the word. I mean, that's a pretty straightforward and telling spreadsheet you got there. So, and it's at least to my eyes, it's much better than I anticipated.
Yeah, this comes right out of your software. So using your software this year, it does export to Excel, but I'm not using Excel spreadsheets. I mean, I could have gave you a 5-year projection, but I thought, based on last year and the cuts that we made and we knew what we wanted to put back in, that this was a good place to start. I only had to add column G to give you projected expenditures. This pretty much matches your current budget status report right now in the general fund. There's just a few yellow highlighted numbers down below where I had to add in, hourly wages, for support staff or transportation. And so then I had to tweak the, like there for transportation, that was a 0. Well, I think we're going to keep paying our transportation people. So there's a few things that I estimated for the rest of the year and added in, some retirement and some Social Security on those. And if you go down a little further, you'll see I added the transfers in. Social Security, retirement, and then down below I added the transfers in. Just to give you a better idea of what I think the projected expenses are. And like I said, in 2 weeks, your January financial statements are just about done. I'm going to do your January cash flow. And then I should be able to talk to Michelle and Dan, and we should be able to hammer out where we think our fund balance is going to be. So at least a rough idea.
Great. Now that's good. So we'll have more accurate numbers, you think, around 2 weeks?
Well, the next meeting, right? We meet again in 2 weeks.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
that's correct.
So we should, all of this, we should just be able to be hammering out those ones that, look a little funky, or we're not sure, or waiting for information, or, we just want it to be the best budget that it can be. It's never going to be perfect, but, if anybody has any comments or questions or concerns, and Dan's only had this for a day, so, when he gets a chance to look at it a little more with his staff, maybe we'll find some things that we missed, or, things that look like they're too much that we might be able to reduce, but this is a good starting point.
Yeah, this format is really great. I mean, it gives us the ability to look at all the the major areas. So I do like the format.
I appreciate the info, Charlene. So it seems to be pretty comprehensive. I just want to make sure, one, we're following up on workman's comp. That's really got me questioned on that one. Matter of fact, I'm here.
Right.
With workman's
James, though, if you think about what Dan said earlier, that workman's comp, there were a couple situations that occurred last year.
I know, but we just want to check to make sure. I got a buddy who's an expert in this stuff over here. And the other thing is the transportation. We got to make a decision if we're going to go back the way it was, or just keep it as it is.
Well, I think at some point we'll have to, that might be the final decision when we have our final numbers, then we can decide what we want to do about that.
Right, so just keep that on the burner so we know we got to take care of that.
Yeah.
So I have one that I wanted to bring up and just make sure that we're on the same page. So we're talking about a lot of things, and we certainly like to bring back some of the program and some of the opportunities that we lost last year. One of those was the pre-K program, and we don't know where we're going to be. And I know, Charlene, you said you had that in the F fund sheet, and I can pop that one up if folks want to see it, or if there's some information to be spoken to on that sheet. But they are all in your folder. But I need to hear where that is priority wise. Is it pre-K before transportation? Is it pre-K before extracurriculars? Is it extracurriculars before pre-K? Is it that's one of the conversation pieces I need.
Whoa, go
sooner rather than later, because it affects student enrollments, and it affects the plans that parents have for their youngest children coming into our school district. Certainly, parents have plans about athletics too. But your kid's going to go to school most likely either way, whether there's athletics section or not. If there's no pre-K program, we've got a group of parents and families that need to know that as soon as we could provide that information to them. So
yeah, it's going to come down to the gap again that we're looking at. Do we know what the projection is? And I think the aid covers 81% of the cost or something like that, depending on how many kids register, whatever that number is. Do we have any information on kids registering? Is it way too early?
So it's not way too early, but right now the registrations we have are low. I had Mr. Galarno talk with Mrs. LeBaron and give me an update, and we're in the single digits right now. But it is early, and it's also a year where folks know we don't have a program. So if they're not listening to these meetings, they may not know that we're even contemplating a program. So that's where I'm going to ask John and Deb to start by, unless you tell me that pre-K is a no-go because it's that low on their priority list. But if it's a maybe go, then I think we have to do a little public announcement about, hey, we're looking at reinstating this program if possible, because we think it's valuable to the youth of Fort Edward. Please fill out prospective registration forms so that the board can make an informed decision on this program.
So if I understand Charlene right, pre-K's already in the numbers we're looking at. To go with transportation is an add, correct?
Right, but most of pre-K, I have the salaries and the Social Security over in the F fund, and I presume they'll need a few other things. And I pretty much have the insurance being covered in the A fund. So
right, there's going to be a difference between the aid and the actual salary. I don't recall what that difference was, but in terms of providing a program, it
Yeah,
wasn't
it
that
covers
much
the
money.
salaries. It covers the salary, security,
Right.
probably even the retirement, but it won't cover the health insurance.
Right. But again, as far as the transportation thing, that would be an add,
Right.
significantly
Yeah.
actually. So if we're talking about not doing pre-K, you know,
It doesn't help. It doesn't help transportation.
that's what I'm saying. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, what's the board thinking about that stuff? Are we thinking about pre-K? What are we thinking about?
I think we want to go back to the full comprehensive educational program that we can possibly offer. And I think if we can, we have to take a look at it.
I agree, James. I agree. If it's in there and these numbers are looking the way they are, like I'm pretty happy the way things are looking right now.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Chris, especially when you look at, you know, the 5-year plan too, she did have, you know, the property tax cap for the next 5 years and things. But when you talk about transportation, what are you really looking at in terms of going back to our old transportation? What are you thinking about? What's that discussion about?
I didn't think it was on the table. Actually, to tell you the truth, we made so many changes in terms of equipment and everything.
So you'd need full-time bus driver for sure, at least one with benefits, and you need to buy a bus.
Yeah.
Lease on a 66 passengers about $20,000.
Have you had a lot of
that was on the
conversations
table
with the
at all.
community about transportation?
I have not. I mean, certainly people were disappointed by it. Some folks, I think, believe it's only happening because of COVID. Other people, I believe, realize that it's part of one of the budget reductions we made last year. But I think my feeling is if they had to choose between their child being in a class of 30 and having them on a bus to get here, or having them in a class of less than 30 and having to get them here on their own, they'd choose the latter.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why we made the original decision regarding that. So yeah, I'm surprised to hear that we're talking about that. But yeah, as far as pre-K goes, I think most of the committee feels like or most, if not all, thinks that we should pursue that.
Translation, Dan, that transportation is an extremely low priority.
There you go.
Yeah.
Got it. I appreciate that. And I was just showing you the fund that Charlene was talking about. You can see we've got the 45 in for the teacher and the 19 in for the support staff as far as their salaries go. You said, I think the benefits are in there too, right, Charlene, for those
I
positions?
put the Social Security was just below it. EPK's all
Oh,
the
the $4,800.
Yeah. I didn't put the retirement in there, but I think it would cover that as well, depending on the number of students. If we can get a good feel for the number of students, then we can get a better feel what the grant's going to be and how much is going to get covered. Again, you know, we're going to have to cover the health insurance, but you know, it's going to be the less expensive health insurance because everybody's on the HRA now. So, you know, it definitely would be cheaper than it was before.
Right.
Good.
So Dan, what about athletics then? The reason why we cut the athletics at that point because of the contingency budget. So we're currently right now there's no athletics in this budget. Is that what you're saying?
No, Charlene, in the projection of the budget, that included the extracurriculars and athletics, or did not? She's saying yes, it did, Todd. So that would be
it's included. Yeah.
That would be reinstating those out in the.
You can see it. It's in the 2855.
Okay.
So the whole 90,000 is back in there. And all the extracurriculars, all the stipends for all the clubs and everything is back in there. So I used the numbers from the year before, or from the last year that were in there before the cuts. So again, I could look at that a little more closely and look at the contracts and make sure they're exact, but I'm sure they're pretty close.
So what do you have for questions? And Charlene, what other discussion topics do we need to hear get some feedback from the board on right now?
I don't have any other questions. Really, I think you addressed, the one concern, but.
I'll speak briefly to the one I have like maybe 2 points. I'm just what budget code is athletics, Charlene? Do you know?
2855.
2855. I do not memorize budget codes, folks. So
Neither do I, but I just happened to remember that one because I was in it today looking at something.
2855.
Yep. Inter athletics.
There it is, Todd, right?
Yep.
So
And
you got your salaries and your contractual for your officials and such. Nothing in there for supplies and materials.
my supplies and materials line is low, so we might have to take a look at that. That's one of the things I mentioned on the forecast that I noticed that was down a little bit. I'm sure a lot of that stuff just got cut last year, so we might need to take a look at that.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep. So a couple things. Charlene and I spent about an hour today on the phone with Moody's. Moody's is the group of folks that provide our credit rating, and we heard from them and we're affirmed by them that we're moving in the right direction. As you all know, we were downgraded fairly significantly last year to, what was it, BAA, I think they told us today. From
BA, I think so.
BA2, I think is what they said, down from an A rating.
It's the lowest rating that you can get to still
Borrow money.
Right.
So we're hopeful. It may not go directly back up, but we were able to provide quite a bit of information based on Charlene's reports to talk with them and answer some questions today. We're hoping that we'll see an upgraded rating. Either way, we're going to get some feedback from them. They're going to issue a statement on our credit rating and either reaffirm the rating or affirm that the rating has changed in the next week or so. Even if it doesn't change, the information we could provide to them showed that we're moving in the right direction right now. As long as we can hold to the budget that we've got this year, and put out a budget for next year that we can hold to as well, we're on the right path. But they were interested in the fiscal stress designation and the fact that we were able to improve upon that. So Charlene spoke to that at our last finance committee meeting, because that rating ties into what kind of cash you have on hand at the end of the year to pay your summer bills. And that's always a part of our conversation when we're talking about our budget for next year. And one of the things we have to be careful of, and I think the word that I like that Charlene has used with me a few times is we have to be more sophisticated with our budgeting than hoping that we can apply every cent that we have left in this year to next year's budget to make it run, because that's not a long-term solution to the situation that we're in. That being said, I understand that we want everything for our kids, but if we burn the candle from both ends, it will burn twice as fast. So I'll use that saying and leave it at that.
Yeah, Moody's was very interested in our 5-year tax cap and our 5-year projection. And like the board, they were trying to really get me to commit to our fund balance today. And I said, no, not today. In 2 weeks, then I will commit when I commit to my board what I think my projected fund balance will be. But they liked what they were seeing, but they wanted to see a little bit more, was kind of, I think, where she was going. They want to see for Edward continue down the path that we started this year into next year. So they want to see us planning for the future. They want to see us improving our fiscal stress score. I told them we had a plan for that, and we had talked about it, and we knew how to do it. And so they were, I think they're like kind of on the fence, really looking to see us continue in this direction, the direction that we've been moving in.
Hey, Charlene, I have a question about that rating. So I know it has to do with structure, it has to do with cash flow and all that stuff. We're going out with a double-digit budget again. Does a failed budget or having to go to a contingency budget, since we're not capturing revenue, does that affect our increase?
They said not in of itself that our contingency budget and our voters' hesitance in supporting our budgets didn't in of itself affect our rating, but that's when she said that she was looking forward to seeing Fort Edward continue in the direction that we have been moving. So they were impressed with what they saw. They just want to see a little more of it.
Gotcha.
I would wager to say, Tom, a couple of years of failed budgets will not help us improve our credit rating. I know,
Yeah, I
I
kind
know
of
the question
figured.
you're
I just,
asking. I'll answer directly.
Thanks. I knew it had to do with structure and how we're working stuff, but I kind of figured if we can't get revenue at budget time, I think it's probably going to have a bit of an effect. But
It
I
was
get it.
more.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was more about the voters and how they feel, or the mood in the community, or you know what I mean? Like, she was really asking about how we were getting the word out there. And so it really was about perceptions. And I think I've talked a lot about that with the board, that it's about transparency, it's about perceptions, it's about telling your story, and answering, when there is misinformation out there, then getting the right information out. And, I just learned a lot of this over the years, especially, with the merger study, getting the accurate information out there and being transparent is really, in multiple mediums, it's very important. And she really asked a lot about that today.
That's great. That's awesome. All right. Anything else we got on to review this evening?
Do you want to see should we go through the 5-year tax cap projection again, Charlene, or folks
You
could?
can pull it up quick if you want. I got the numbers from WishWe for the capital numbers. Let me see. Yep. So 22 and 23 and beyond. I think it changed by $20 or something since the last time I put it up here. So we were waiting for the numbers for WishWe for the BOCES capital expenditure and the BOCES revenue. So I did get those numbers. So it's ready to be submitted on March 1st, but at the board's direction at the end, when it says, do you intend to exceed the tax cap? The last direction I received was to say yes.
So that's where people say that's where we still are, or no, that's not where we are. So just want to make sure that that's still the sentiment. And I know the last time there was a qualifying factor that yes, as long as we're very clear on what that money over the tax cap does for our school and students and community is what I remember from last time. But I just want to make sure board members are still there.
And we can change that, but once you say yes, OSC will put the results of those initial March 1st tax cap reports out there, and the agencies will report on it, and they'll report how many are going to exceed the cap and what rates they're at, and all that becomes public the minute I push the button. So it's within a day or two they start reporting that out. So I mean, I can leave it at the cap, so the number is at the cap, but just say yes, but it will be in the public information.
Right.
Well,
Comments?
we don't have any choice to do what we're doing. I think we just got to educate the public as to why we're doing what we're doing. We did the whole cut thing last year, and quite frankly, it was difficult for everyone in that building. And so we're trying to bring some stuff back for the kids and for everyone. So hopefully the public can see that, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. So.
And we can talk March 1, right, Charlene? March 1?
Yeah, next Monday. Yep.
So we're going to leave that. We're going to leave it as a yes.
Okay.
We can change it, but that's what people are gonna. It'll be public. The Post-Star will go on to the Is that one published on the comptroller's website? Which one publishes the tax cap? They'll go on, they'll find all the schools, and they'll run a story about who's going to try to exceed the tax cap, and we'll certainly be a part of that story.
Yep, and hopefully they contact us so we can explain the 12.78% is majority is because of the pilot going on.
Right.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
So those.
And it doesn't hurt to get that information out ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think that it might be. I'm hopeful that this year we can have. It's a double-edged sword, right? I'm hopeful that we could have the Post-Star come and actually sit down, and we could provide some information in an organized fashion that might be helpful, because I believe that some of the board members last year said that they think that's the number one source of budget information for many of our community members is what's posted in the Post-Star. I seem to remember that being said last year. If I'm wrong,
Without a doubt.
Well, I think number one is hearsay. Number two is Post-Star.
Okay.
Right. So we have to get the word out. We have to get our story out before people start telling our story for us.
Right.
Yeah, because they're forwarding the article on Facebook, so it's not even people who subscribe to the Post-Star. It's just folks who have social media,
That's what
and they're seeing that stuff. So,
Right, because there's certainly some information that we tried to bring forward last year, but it was April, May, and I actually can't remember exactly but it was probably the week or two before the budget vote where we were providing some different charts through our social media and on our website about here's the last 15 years of levy history, here's the last 15 years of this, here's the last 10 years of that, because we were concerned with some of the narrative that you folks were hearing out in our community, because it didn't match what the data said. And we want to get the data out ahead of it so that people can see that.
well, invite Good or whoever else. I mean, actually, last year he did a pretty comprehensive review of some of the things we talked about. I think he had joined some of our finance committees too. So, but invite him in and let's let him know what's going on and try to dictate the narrative instead of respond to theirs.
Well, remember last year I think we might have waited a little too long to get that misinformation stopped. We allowed it to fester and once it got out there. So if we get ahead of this thing and put the word out, this is the reason why it is 12.70, way beyond our control. Look at how tight this budget is. I think we got a big plus.
Well, now we're sparking all these horrible memories. If you recall, the terminology they used in the Post-Star was double-digit increase, and that echoed throughout the entire community, the double-digit, and that was where we kind of felt was the epicenter of the bad press, if you will. So, and again, we're looking at a double-digit, but let's not call it that. Let's rephrase it.
Yeah, and I also think too, having the single principal in our budget is going to hopefully change some people's minds as well. Because I know for a fact people voted the budget down simply because we had a second principal.
Yeah. Oh, might be, yeah.
No question.
Excellent. Other items, Charlene, or other items, board members, members?
We should focus in our narrative on the 2% or whatever it calculates out to be. I know I calculated it before, that it's really, and calculate what the tax rate increase is estimated to be based on the estimated levy, and definitely focus on the things that we're bringing back. So this is what you're going to get. This is everything that we want to bring back for our students, and we should get that narrative out right away.
Right. The other thing, not to belabor it too long, but we have not spent a lot of time talking about tax on true in Fort Edward, and I think that is something that we have to talk more about. Although people, many folks, I think, have a hard time with it. And if anybody was on the annexation meeting last night, you heard that. But when all the tax rates go in the newspaper, or when people ask, well, what's the tax? What are you paying in taxes in this community, and what are you paying in that community? And then we put out our rate. Those aren't based on tax on true property values. And as you know, we have a last year was a 73% equalization rate. I think this year, I don't know if it's 73 or supposed to be 70 this year. I'd have to look. I think it's 70. That makes a difference. So instead of your rate being, we'll call it 29, whatever it was this year, 29, 28. Really, the real number, if tax on true, if you were assessed at 100%, is 21. And I get that the bill doesn't change for people, but the comparison to other communities changes. If you're taking tax on true and you're saying, well, if Fort Edward we're paying tax on true 21.52, and I'm making a number up, and in Hudson Falls they're paying 17, and I don't know what their number is either, and in Argyle they're paying this. Where if other people are at 100% and they're paying that 17, and we're showing our number at 70 or 73% equalization rate, and our number is $29. You know, and I'm not trying to, there's nothing about trying to mislead people, but I think we have to show both numbers and try to explain those numbers. If you're looking at other communities, make sure you're taking into account how their homes and their properties are assessed.
I think that's why that tax effort is so powerful. So powerful, because it's the percentage of their income that they're paying in school taxes, and everybody can relate to that. How much of your income are you paying in school taxes? Oh, 2%. Oh, 10%. I mean, they can relate to that. I mean, it just makes sense.
I agree with that to a point, but remember, what people look at, the bottom line is, how much did I pay last year? How much am I paying this year? Because some of
The change.
You get involved, I hate to do this, Tom, but when you get involved in that hyperbolic verbiage, people don't get it and they don't care. They know how it affects the wallet, and that's the bottom line. So Dan, I agree, we do have to get that out, but understand there are certain will understand, certain won't, certain don't care, and I get it. They care about the wallet. That's the bottom line. We got to push that.
Yep. Ella, I see you're unmuted.
Yep, the only thing I was going to say with the ERS and the TRS, I really just think that we really need to look at that for down the road. And then the other thing I was just wanted to mention is you did mention some aides and assistants coming on that there was a need for. And I'm just kind of curious with the class sizes going back down to what they used to be, hopefully at the elementary, 2 sections of everything. Are we really closely looking at the need for aides and assistants now that maybe some classes are 15 or 16? And I'm sure you are, but that just, came out to me a little bit. And
I can speak to the aides and assistants. So each one of those that we're talking about is attached to a child. Based on projected annual review and the outcome of that annual review.
Okay.
And so it has us bringing some students back, but I'm glad you asked the question because I want to make sure that I say this. In some instances, bringing a student back to the least restricted environment here in our building is a savings to us. In some cases, it is not. So I just want to be clear about that. And I'm glad you asked, Ella. So the committee decides what the appropriate placement is. We do not fiddle with that one bit. And I know you know that I said that last year to a large group of public because they some of them know what out of district placements cost. The committee decides where the child is appropriately placed. Then we're required to provide that program for them. So if we have a student, here's the example of bringing somebody back to the most appropriate placement here in our building, costing us more. If they're out at a placement that's costing us $25,000 a year, and again, I'm making up a number, and I have to hire an aide, I'm going to pay that aide's salary is going to be about $16,000, and their family health insurance is going to be about $19,000 next year. So right there, you can do the math. That's $35,000 for that child's support. Not counting having to give them speech and those types of things. You can see quickly how bringing a student back to the least restrictive, most appropriate environment doesn't always mean a savings. So that's part of the narrative too. We're bringing these kids back and folks might say, well, where's the savings? Not necessarily are we seeing a lot of savings. I think in the end, I'm hoping to be even, but I think we're looking at, there was like 4 young people we were looking at bringing back to our school building, and there was 2 we were looking at bringing back from placements that are farther away to a local BOCES placement
Dan,
based on those conversations so far.
we talking about like 612 or 1211 classes. We're talking about bringing those kids back to the school, because if you do, is there a possibility that we can look at other schools and say, listen, we now have this program in our building. Would you want to tuition somebody in? We used to do that all the time. We'd bring one back or two back and set up our own program to see if there's if others were looking for availability to offset some of those costs. I realize it's early to do that,
Yeah.
but
So
that's something you're looking at.
yeah. So yes, but right now the one classroom that Charlene mentioned where we're looking to restructure a classroom, and again that's very preliminary. We have enough students to fill that classroom with our own kids, but all of the projections we have so far also include the students who are being tuitioned to Fort Edward, continuing to be tuitioned to Fort Edward. And we don't have the final answer on that. So in our middle school life skills program, which, getting that wrong, it's a high school life skills program now. We're bringing in 3 students from another school district to that program.
Good.
So we're doing well there. And in our primary special education self-contained classroom, boy, I don't have it around the tip of my tongue. We have at least one. I think there's 2 that are tuitioned from other school districts into that program. So we have.
That's good. I just want to check to make sure options. We're looking at all the options.
No, anybody who wants to send, we're happy to do so. And actually, when we look at BOCES programming for different programs, we're also trying to see if there's a school district out there that's providing it at a lesser cost. The only concern we have when we have students going to other school districts, if it's 20 miles away, we've got the transportation, and that's certainly a large concern. Where if we have a placement like Washington Street School, it's not very far away, as you all know. So we can't always just say, another school district's going to be better for us, because sometimes it's worth paying a little more for BOCES for a couple reasons, for the aid and because we have programs so close to us with BOCES, and it cuts out the transportation, or much of the transportation, for us. Other items, Charlene?
Oh, just working on it.
So in 2 weeks, we'll get back together. So everything that we looked at tonight is in the Finance Committee folder under 2/23/2021. If you can't find something, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to jump in there. Again, as far as, not that I can't follow mathematics, but if you want a real detailed description of how those documents were made, Charlene is certainly the person to provide those rather than myself.
Dan and Charlene, there was one document that was still there. I thought earlier that was unknown. Was that an accident or didn't come through right? I don't know if everyone else is seeing that. It was the last document that you actually posted.
Yeah, I see that too, Todd.
Unknown, but I appreciate the spreadsheets. So I love looking at the formulas that are used to derive all that stuff. So thank you. I'd rather have that than a PDF.
It's at the bottom. I see it at the bottom, Todd. It looks like it was put in there a while ago.
Okay.
Ask that you don't share or modify those spreadsheets.
It looks like I put it in on February 12th. It's like
Come in and say, this is what I had.
and I can't get it to open either. So I'll try to figure out what this. But if it was February 12th, more likely than not, it was something from the School Boards Association that I put in there a while back when I put the rest of the stuff in there on February 12th. Like if you go to the top, you can see I put in some documents that have just a lot of letters and numbers as their title, and there's stuff from the School Board Association. So I think that's probably what it is. Maybe they had their when they send all the attachments, maybe they had their footer at the bottom with their picture, and it pulled it through as an attachment.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think everything else that we went through was there. I think that's probably I'll try to open it and see if I can clean it up, but I got a feeling that that it's nothing that you need to be concerned about.
Yeah, there is some good information out there. I put out there on the governor's budget, and it broke it down by the traditional revenue streams that are all based on formulas, and he lumped them all together. So, if you want to take a look at that, we didn't really want to focus on go backwards and focus on revenue tonight, but I wanted to put it out there for you. So there were some good some good information that some of the organizations took his budget and made a little more sense out of it. So.
And so I'll maybe close with this for my speaking part anyway. So this week on Friday, I'll be participating in the lobby day, which many of you know. Normally, I make several trips to Albany to speak with specific individuals, as well as Division of Budget, Senate Finance, Assembly Ways and Means. Because of COVID, that doesn't occur in person anymore. So I'll be with a group of superintendents this year online, and we have meetings scheduled for the entire day on Friday to talk about the priorities for our BOCES, but it also allows me to talk specifically about the Fort Edward situation, how that applies to those priorities. So that does continue. That work does continue. It just continues a little differently. So I wanted to make the board aware of that as well.
Good luck with that, Dan.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, it's 6:40. We'll meet again in about 2 weeks, and we'll have updated documents for you. We're very hopeful that we can keep those numbers at the bottom of the forecast page, close to where they are right now, with that budget coming in somewhere near flat, and with that tax levy increase being slightly above what the pilot is forcing it to be increased by. All right. Excellent. Everybody. Have a great night. And thanks, Charlene, for everything.
You're welcome.